Okay, so now we're going to talk about talent management, which has kept coming up throughout this class. So basically, what is talent management? Well, talent management doesn't have to do with being a great singer or having lots of beautiful drawing skills. Talent management has to do with the person's skill set, both hard and soft skills, in order for that specific job post. And of course, remember that a talent that is something clear to you doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a talent for others, and vice versa. And of course, talent in this situation always has to be defined in the context of the different business model that the organization has chosen. So the philosophy of talent management as a process is first the selection. We post a job ad, and we get lots of different resumes being sent to us from different candidates. And this is the selection process. Here we have to see the differentiation based on the different kind of organization that we have, the differentiation of our talent pool or the candidates, and the targeting process. Then development. Once we have chosen the person who we want to be in our organization, we offer them the job, they accept, they come and become part of our organization. Now it's time for us to develop their skills. And of course, development is something that can be ongoing throughout their entire career at our organization. It doesn't have to do with just the training on day one or month one of being part of the organization, saying this is the intern that we use, and we go on our lunch break every day at noon. And if you need to ask for vacation, you have to do so using this form. It doesn't just necessarily have to do with that kind of training. It also has to do with, for example, if the organization requires a new skill set, or for example, there are specific competencies that we see that person has and can be fully developed because they have not realized their potential. This is what it has to do with. Then, of course, there is the next stage, which is the evaluation stage. And this can be something that is also ongoing, where depending on the different business model or the different type of performance management system that the organization uses, it can be an ongoing evaluation being done even by your peers, or it can be done by the person that you have right above you that you report to, or it can be done by a number of people in middle and top management. And of course, in the evaluation, the idea is to be able to receive both criticism, constructive criticism, so that the person can improve, develop, progress in the company. But of course, also, we must talk about things that are being done well, because this will lead us to the next and not necessarily final stage, which is motivation. It's increasing employee morale, helping them to feel that they are an integral part of this organization. And this can be done through many different ways. It can be done through a reward system. It can be done through recognizing their merits. It can be done through many different ways that we'll look at in a different class. But of course, the motivation will be very different from one person to the next, because each person's value system and each person's self-esteem or self-confidence will change based on the experiences that they've had, based on their specific kind of personality, etc. Somebody will be very motivated because they get an increase in their salary, and somebody won't really care so much about their salary, but will be more motivated if they receive an award for Best Employee of the Month, for example. And this is what talent management has to do with. So what kind of complaints can we see about performance management systems? Well, there are ways that bosses, managers, and human resource workers actually demotivate people in our workforce based on biases, different standards, surprise, based on being secretive, etc. but I'm going to speak about the ones that have to do with actual aspects that are not people problems, or shall we say that are not issues that can necessarily be linked to interpersonal relationships, etc. Because of course I can have a bias against, I don't know, against people that are tall, and that's me, that's my people problem. It doesn't have to do with the organization itself. However, these issues that I have pointed out right now do have to do with the organization itself, because of course, one person that is in a job post that has the same responsibilities as somebody else cannot be measured differently. Their standards have to be the same. There can be no element of surprise. For example, when we evaluate somebody, we can't say, well, we are going to be evaluating you based on this, which is something that has not been disclosed to the person before. Though we have to be making our talent pool aware of the different characteristics and the different responsibilities that we expect of them. The work, of course, cannot be subjective. The evaluation process cannot be subjective. I can't, as myself, for example, let's say I'm an HR manager in Amazon, and I can't say, well, I, Laura Perez, am going to evaluate Beatrice based on whether I like her or not, or based on something more subjective. I like people with red hair and Beatrice has blonde hair. No, it has to be something that has to be neutral and completely objective, so that whether it's Laura Perez that is evaluating Beatrice or my colleague John Smith that is evaluating Beatrice, we should have the same evaluation for this person. No linkage, no differentiation, no support. This has to do with us being able to provide tools, provide support, and provide assistance to our different people in the workforce. So let's take a look at a few other things based on the different kinds of business model that we choose. Talent management within an organization that has chosen the operational excellence, low-cost producer approach. Well, when we look at the organization job skill set that is needed, we can see that most of the companies within this type of organization or discipline have a central authority. There is the main boss. There is a low level of empowerment for the rest of the organization. The rest of the workforce has to do what they are told, basically. There are strict hierarchies. There are strict procedures, rules, guidelines, and everybody's expected to be aligned and to be following these procedures and guidelines. The culture, value, and norms. Well, we can see that there is discipline, teamwork. It's a process and product-driven culture, and everybody has to fit and conform with this idea. It's that you are replaceable. In most companies within these kinds of discipline, don't see their people as assets. They see their people as tools. And if you are not working, then it's okay, you can leave, because somebody else will come in and we won't hardly tell the difference. In terms of information and systems, well, we can see that there are low-cost transactional systems that are integrated throughout the organization. The system is the process itself. And in terms of management, basically, well, there's one central authority. So I command, I control, I am the authority figure. Nobody else can say anything. And the quality management is one of the approaches here where management is very important, has to have great quality management in order for this organization to finish and to achieve its goals. With product leadership organizations like Apple, like Tesla, like other kinds of companies that are very innovative, well, we can see that it's much more, how can I say, much less structured and hierarchical and based on rules and procedures and guidelines. Since these kinds of companies are much more innovative in their approach, this is what they want their people to do. So for example, in terms of the organization, we can see that there are high skills that are in the majority of these structures, but these structures are loose-knit, where there can be one hierarchy for one project and a completely different hierarchy for another project. As you can see, it's something more ad hoc. In terms of the culture, it's more of a concept, future-driven approach. There's a lot of ideas. There's lots of out-of-the-box mindset. There's lots of experimentation, brainstorming, and anybody can be adding to these ideas, whether it's the intern that has just started or whether it's somebody in top management. In terms of IT and systems, well, it's more person-to-person communication systems, and there are technologies that enable cooperation. And in terms of management systems, well, there's more rewarding individuals. Here, it's not so much the central authority, but seeing the human resources as assets. And of course, there is also management in terms of risks, in terms of exposure. And of course, there's also the approach regarding the product lifecycle. And to finish up, customer intimacy. Well, here we see that there is a huge empowerment in regards to the people who are the frontliners with the customers, though there is very high skills in the field of the people who are responsible for customers, although of course there is a high skill set in the rest as well. It is a customer-driven approach, and since there is high customization, the culture is that we can adapt to each client. With information and systems, there's a huge database that has to do with our customers, that we link both internal and external processes and information. And of course, we have very strong analytical tools, because since we provide this customization, we are constantly using these kind of tools. And management systems measure customer equity, like, for example, lifetime value. And of course, satisfaction and share management of our market share. Now, another aspect that we have to see, besides the ones that have to do with the specific business model that have been chosen, is the performance support, where here we always are looking at the end goal, which is the corporate objective. And we see the four-wheel model. This is called the four-wheel model of the performance support, where we can see that structures, the resources, the person, and the leadership are strongly linked to each other and to the performance support, which is going to directly affect our performance objectives and which are going to directly affect the corporate objectives themselves. So when we look at the performance management systems, there are various approaches, and now I'm going to talk about one of the approaches that most, or shall I say 99% of workers absolutely hate. And here it's basically known as the curse of the bell curve. The bell curve is a type of performance management in which we force people into ranks. And we can even see this, like, for example, in education, this can be grading based on a curve. Based on who is the best, we can see, and then from there, use that as a benchmark to see who is mediocre, who is more satisfactory, and who is doing very poorly. And so through this type of system, what the organization tries to do is separate the best, the mediocre, and the worst performance. And then what they do is nurture and make sure that the best continue to grow, they continue to develop. And usually the worst are either left alone or actually asked to leave the company. So here we can see, for example, the different kind of staff. And here we can see that the excellent staff would be a very low percentage, basically 2.1%, and the rest would be measured in comparison to this percentage of people. So how can we get the performance management right? Well, the first thing we need to do is, of course, and this will happen from the business organization itself, we have to ensure that the business model and the strategy that has been chosen for the organization is the most suitable for the organization's objectives. We have to ensure that we link the system, remember, aligning the system with the business model. And then, of course, we have to ensure that we can simplify the KPIs and the processes to that specific business model. Then In terms of the employees, we have to ensure that we clarify the philosophy of our system so that they can be aligned with our organizational goals. We have to be able to strengthen the performance management system based on the different KPIs that I've mentioned before for each market discipline. We have to ensure that we can redirect funds to where they are most needed. We have to ensure that we brainwash our appraisers. Now, what does this mean? The people who are going to be evaluating and appraising the workforce have to be able to understand and be completely aligned with what it is that we need. So, and this comes back to being objective. So especially when the people are beginning in our company, we have to be able to brainwash, sounds a little bit bad, but we have to be able to share what it is that we want and ensure that they are aligned with the objectives that we want, so that they are not bringing any previous experiences with them. Because of course, if they're coming from a company that had the customer intimacy approach, and now they're entering a company that has the cost leadership approach, for example, it's going to be very different, and the objectives of the workforce evaluations are going to be based on very different KPIs than the previous one. And of course, we need to use the 4-wheel support system for all of our employees. So this brings me to the end of this week's class. For next session, I would like you to read Chapter 3 in our Strategic Human Resource Management textbook, and Chapter 1 on our Human Resource Management textbook, which is also up on our classroom stream, and take a look at these online resources here. Have a great week and see you soon. Bye-bye.